Hi, I'm the one who always said stay laced because laces matter. But every now and then you have to unlace them because the real stories, the real decisions, and the real mistakes don't happen when everything is tied up neatly. This is Unlaced, and I'm Dakshin Adyantaya, and it's time to loosen those knots with a celebrated designer, Omar Bailey. Omar is a legend with 20 years of experience in global product development and manufacturing as a design engineer. He has an illustrious career working with brands like Supreme, New Balance, K-Swiss, and Yeezy's Adidas before starting his own venture, which he calls the FCTRY Lab. Let's get straight to him. This is Unlaced. I am Dakshin Adyantaya, and today we got the legendary Omar Bailey. Hi Omar, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great. It's always amazing when I'm in India. So
Welcome to India, welcome to Bombay. How's that going for you?
It's great, compared to the last time I was here, which was in, I want to say, September 2024 or 2024. It was very wet and very rainy. It was monsoon season, and so it's very nice to be here with the sun is out, go walk on the beach, and see everyone out and about. So it's really nice to be here.
True. And monsoons might be the best time to visit Bombay, but the worst time for sneakerheads to wear those.
Oh
kicks
my
in for
goodness,
sure.
forget about it. Probably get into a lot of fights with people, right? Like, stepping on dirty shoes or stepping in puddles of water. Yeah, shoes and water and, and dirt and all that stuff doesn't mix.
Absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to begin this with firstly congratulating you. Your autobiography has been out. You've been killing it with new silhouettes, been releasing quite often with FCTRY Lab.
Yeah.
So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to start with those stories. What is there in your autobiography? Tell me about those nice, interesting stories.
Yeah, my biography. It's funny. It was my co-founder, Abhishek, who came up with the idea for me to do the book. I just finished filming this television show, this unscripted documentary with Keanu Reeves,
right?
Which was still crazy to even say that I did a TV show with Keanu Reeves. But we did this show called Visionaries which is on Roku, streaming platform back in the States. And through that show, we talked about my story as a 7-year-old drawing sneakers as a kid and just really developing this passion for this art form that I had no idea I could actually do for a living. It was just something that I totally did for the love.
But they also call you the shoe man.
The shoe guy. The shoe guy. They called me that in high school. Yeah, and but yeah. Anyway, so we did that show, and I guess the bright idea sort of popped into Abhi's head. He's like, "Hey, you should start working on a book." And at first I thought he was crazy, and then I was like, maybe the timing is right, and we put some things in motion, and it happened. So yeah, just a quick kind of synopsis on the book. It's the biography of my life story. It's my 42 years on this earth so far, but it's a unique story, I believe. But it's also one that shows heart and soul, which is what it's called, but really determination and commitment to a thing, to a craft, to something that you believe in and that you wanted to do, even though you have no idea where exactly it's going to take you. Following your heart. And it started at a young age, like I said, drawing sneakers as a 7-year-old, but even before that with my father, who was always, and my mom, who were always big believers in my talent as a drawer, as an artist. And then, that leading me to going to art school, and art school leading to me being able to do internships with brands like Adidas and K-Swiss and New Balance, and to designing some of my first shoes that were out on the market, to working with all kinds of big stars and celebrities, from making shoes for Jay-Z and Lady Gaga, to working with T-Pain and working for Kanye West, and a number of different athletes as well, Kareem Benzema, all these different folks, and then now starting FCTRY Lab. So it's so it's sort of walking in my shoes, and experience that journey with me, and hopefully I'm able to teach you some lessons, and you're able to pick up a few things along the way.
Yeah. No, we're getting into all those stories as we get deeper into the questions.
Yeah.
But very interested in knowing more about the FCTRY Lab as well. But I wanted to know, as you grew, were you also a sneakerhead who has a lot of sneaker in his collection and continue to?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot. I never really considered myself a sneakerhead. A sneakerhead to me is someone who really in addition to just understanding the history of sneakers, which, I'm a history buff when it comes to the footwear, but also knowing like all the different colorways and then this version and this collaboration. I don't know all that stuff, but I do have my holy grail of shoes, which I have. I do have a pretty big sneaker collection.
How many do you have? Plus 500? Plus 1,000?
Yeah, I would say at least 500 pairs.
Nice.
A lot of Yeezys for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
That I have. I probably have a whole storage unit, maybe with about 300 pairs of Yeezys. Wow. I'd say 80% of them are brand new, probably never been worn before. From my time there, and then a kind of a mixed bag of stuff. Shoes from friends of mine who were designers. Who I have their shoes as well. Some of my holy grail stuff, like a couple of my favorite shoes, the Air Penny ones, Air Jordan 11s, like the Deion Sanders, like DT trainers, the Diamond trainers, I believe is what it was called, which is re-released recently. I've been going back and buying a lot of those old shoes, which is crazy though, because I can't wear them. Not because that like I have my own shoe company now, but like those shoes are so narrow and they're so uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's the thing.
They're terrible. Yeah. Like, like you wear them once and I'm like, oh my God, I can never. I got a pair of Charles Barkley's, like the CB4s.
Yeah.
And I always wanted that shoe and I bought them and I wore them once and it was just like my feet were killing me. After I wore them, I was like, okay, these are just going to go up on the shelf, kind of like how you got these up there, and that's where they're going to stay. And that's it. But yeah, so that's as far as my my sneakerheadness and my collection goes.
I ever thought of reselling these or getting into the aspect of reselling?
Nah, man, I don't even know how that. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't know where any of that. Actually, you just made me think of one story though. My dad, I remember this was in 1998 or 99 when Space Jam. After Space Jam came out and they released the Space Jam Air Jordan 11s for the first time, and I wanted them really bad. And my dad, I asked him to come with me to the mall to get them because back home at that time in the States there was a lot of sort of violence around shoes and kids would get beat up and get their shoes taken from them in schools. That was also part of the reason why I started. That was a big reason why I got into the sneaker thing and really started drawing, was because my parents didn't buy me all the fancy Air Jordans because they were afraid that I would become a victim. Somebody would try and hurt me for the shoes. So that was a big reason why I started drawing them. But anyway, so fast forward back to the Jordan 11 story. I asked my dad to come with me to the mall because that's what I was worried about. Oh my gosh, if I buy the shoes and I walk out the mall and a couple kids are waiting there and beat me up and take them. So I was like, could you come with me? So he comes with me, and he had no idea what the craze was for shoe culture. And at this time, this was still relatively new. Lines forming around corners, just this FOMO that existed for these really one-of-a-kind shoes that we were all seeing for the first time. Now, there's been so many versions of them, but at that time, you're seeing all this stuff for the first time. So we go to the mall, and he sees a line outside of the mall. This is before the mall even opened. Then, because there's, 50 stores in the mall, then maybe of those 50, there are 4 or 5 stores that are shoe stores that are selling the shoe, and you kind of have to pick the one you're going to go to and just beeline straight for it.
Yeah.
So we went to Foot Locker. And we beeline straight for Foot Locker. We're sprinting, like we are running. We get there. We managed to be 10th and 11th in line, me and my dad. And we're waiting in line. And he's like, man, this is crazy. He's like, everyone is doing this for these shoes? I was like, yeah. My dad was the biggest Michael Jordan fan, too, as well at that time. He's like, I'm going to buy a pair. So he did. So I bought my pair of Space Jam 11s, which have, since, maybe recently in the last, 6 or 7, maybe 8 years of like completely disintegrated. The sole fell off and they're done. But my dad, he bought them and put them in the closet and never touched them. Wow. And I was at his house earlier this year, or last year in 2025, and he still has them in the closet with the receipt in the box. Never been worn, never been touched. A size 9, brand new, the original. Wow. Space Jam Jordan 11s just sitting in there in the box. Yeah. Which is really cool.
He never intends to sell it, I'm assuming.
No, he wants me to just take them. He's like, you take them. I was like, I'm not going to take them. Not right now. Like, you just hang on to them. They're just sitting in the closet in his house. So, wow. Yeah, one of these days.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Right then, I'm going to dig more into your illustrious career now. And we're going to talk more about the FCTRY Lab. It doesn't seem like a traditional brand or a design studio. It feels more like an ecosystem that you're creating at this point of time. When you started it, what was the problem you were actually trying to solve for yourself that the industry wasn't addressing, according to you?
Yeah, FCTRY Lab, in order to explain the story of FCTRY Lab, I have to go back a little bit. I was actually living in India. I was living in outside of New Delhi in an area living in Sonipat, Haryana, and I was running a shoe factory there, or working in a shoe factory for Lotto. Okay. The Italian sportswear brand, very popular in India. I think still pretty popular.
Yes, they've just launched their new collection.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of the designs at the time. And this is like 2016, 2017, 2018. And then I got, I got a little bit burnt out. It was a lot of work. Like, I was here. It was just like work, grind, nonstop, which was great. I loved it. It was an incredible experience. But then I ended up going back to the States. And going back to the States, I really started thinking about kind of what my next move was. And I always had this idea to to have a facility or a space with sort of this idea where you can develop and create footwear for anybody that wants to get into the shoe business. The thing with footwear is that it's really difficult to get into it, to break into it. And, when you look at sort of the big brands, a lot of people see them as gatekeepers, the Nike and the Adidas and the Pumas of the world, right? If you really want to do something in the shoe space, you need to work with one of those guys, which means you need to be a big star to do it. Well, for me, it was like, there are a lot of stars out there who may not be mega stars, but they're big enough stars to do something with, but maybe not big enough for a Nike or an Adidas. So for me, it was about how can I connect the dots with those two worlds, take all this experience that I have and this knowledge from, living in India, working in factories in China, at that time, the 15 years or so that I had in the business, and leverage that to be able to democratize footwear and make the barrier of entry much simpler for someone. Then all of a sudden I got this opportunity with Kanye West, and I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit later, to jump on board as the head of the innovation lab for Yeezy. But through that process, I really got to see what it was like to experience really firsthand what it was like working with, I've worked with a lot of stars, but, he was very different, in terms of the size and the scale of that brand and what we're able to do. And then moving on from there in the FCTRY Lab, it's like, okay, how do I take all these years of experience, all the things that I've gone through and I've seen, and now I understand, working with Yeezy, being in India, being in China, and create a space or a system, if you will, or ecosystem, like you said, to be able to democratize footwear. And so FCTRY Lab was born. And so it came from a series of events and experiences, frustrations that I've grown along the way, frustrations that different entertainers and public figures and celebrities have also experienced themselves, right? And just coming up with a solution where we could, like I said, make the barrier of entry into footwear much easier and allow creators to do exactly what they want and be able to put a product out into the world that has their DNA or has their touch and feel or just their point of view on it in some way, shape, or form, in some capacity, and then for me to be able to help them do that.
Right. And how's it been so far? Do you want to go back to working for the bigger brands?
Hell no. No, if I don't have to, I do not. And I say that with all due respect to the big brands, right?
Yeah.
I had some incredible experiences with some of the brands that I mentioned earlier: New Balance, Timberland,
Yeah.
K-Swiss, Adidas. And those are amazing experiences. And the thing that I'll actually say too, for those young designers out there who may be listening, and I know we live in a time today where everyone wants to be their own boss and be an entrepreneur, and it's from my point of view, it's not something that's for everybody.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of value in working with a big brand on the corporate side. That's where you really get to understand kind of how a big machine works and sort of where you fit into it. And it might be for you, it might be the thing that you want to do. And then, but like for me, I learned that, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I appreciated it for what it was. But then also you really are able to pick up like real tangible skills, like, networking and communication and how you're supposed to communicate, with your colleagues and your peers, responding to emails on time. It's just like these little things that I notice more and more with some of the younger people that I deal with that may not have that. So I say all that to say, it's not the worst thing in the world working for a big brand. I think it helps you sort of identify the direction that you want to go in, and then you decide from there. But if I could change things all over again, I wouldn't. I would do it exactly the way that it played out.
Lovely. And you spoke about communication, and you spoke about people before starting up and working, right? What was Omar's journey like when he was communicating with these top celebrities at that point of time? What was his approach, or how was the first communication? Say, even Kanye, right, for that fact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first star or athlete, celebrity, however you want to define it, that I worked with was probably, I think had to be Allen Houston. New York Knicks legend, if anyone who's listening is a basketball fan. Coincidentally enough, I call Alan a good friend of mine. Like, we still communicate and see each other to this day. And, he's doing a lot of amazing things with the New York Knicks. He also has his own brand called Fizzle, which is really cool. And it's so fun, like, seeing what he's doing. And for our relationship to have grown and evolved in the way that it did. In terms of just working with big stars and celebrities, I've never been like a, someone who's been like overly excited. Not like, of course I'm going to be excited working with the big star, but like, I'm not going to get starstruck in the sense of like, let that distract me from the job. And I've always been that way. So it's been, it's a great experience working with these folks. It definitely is. It has its pros and cons. It's not always as easy as one might think. It's great for business in terms of in the sense of it always just gets people's attention, right? Like, I feel like I've done so many amazing things that don't have celebrities attached to them. But the thing that people want to talk about, hence what we're talking about right now, is the celebrity stuff. True. So I get it. I understand. It serves a purpose. And, from time to time, you're able to put your finger on something and partner with the right celebrity that ends up blowing up and taking off and making it all worth it in the end.
But the reason why I ask you this is also because a lot of aspiring, entrepreneurs in this space, before they start, and if they're starstruck or, they have a big opportunity in hand to work with a celebrity, a lot of compromise comes into the picture with, say, do you take the salary that you want? Do you get to work with the freedom that you want? And all those aspects of it. I'm coming from that aspect of it. Do you think at that point of time, do you ever feel that my work can take a step back in terms of whatever I want to the person that I'm creating for or the brands that I'm working for?
That's a good question. I think it's all about how you position yourself as a creative, right? And for me, I've always maintained my leverage with everyone that I worked with because I always worked with different people.
Right.
I didn't necessarily put all my eggs in one basket with one person all the time, and I always made that very clear up front. Even though I've definitely got offers to like, you know, oh, come work for me exclusively or do that, I never gave up that exclusivity.
Right.
So maybe that's a lesson for young people there, is to like always maintain that leverage by keeping your exclusivity and not necessarily dedicating yourself to one person, because I know people who have done that, right? And then what ends up happening is you get sort of stuck in this hamster wheel, and it becomes very difficult to get out of it because that person becomes so dependent on you to be there, right? And it becomes, you know, then you want to evolve, and you realize your ceiling is only going to go so high working with this person or being stuck under that person. So I think it's very important in the beginning to establish that hey, I'm not working exclusively for any one person or one specific, you know, brand or anything like that, but you know, make it very abundantly clear in the beginning that like, hey, I'm going to be spreading my wings here or casting a wide net and working with a handful of people. And that really worked out for me. No one's really actually asked me that question before. But I think as I'm thinking about it, as I'm answering your question, I'm realizing actually how important that was in maintaining that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And creative freedom, that's also a part of designer's life, right?
Yeah.
You build something, you vision something, someone comes in and says, hey, maybe not, maybe. I'm sure you faced a lot of those, especially working with celebrities or others. How do you face that? And what was your breaking point? Did you have lessons there saying, let's just put up the show? Or do you move?
You mean for like things that may, like for something that I may think is possible or not possible?
Yeah.
You know, I think anything is possible when it comes to footwear and just in general. Like I'm definitely a high functioning optimistic, right? Like I'm extremely optimistic person. And no matter how wild or crazy the idea is, I'm not going to say no to it. I'm going to go down the rabbit hole and figure out a path forward. And then if that path needs to pivot or change for X, Y, Z reason, I'm going to explain it along the way. But I've never said to someone, no, this is impossible. I feel like I have all this experience and I've done all the things that I've done to be able to at least allow me to explore the concept, and then let that exploration tell me what is possible or not within it. Maybe the whole concept 100% is possible, or maybe only 60% of it is possible, and these are the reasons why. So I haven't really experienced that, you know, that much. Definitely have had projects that have failed for sure, but you know, like you know, 50 Cent said, you either get rich or die trying. So
True.
Yeah.
Frustrations. Speaking about it, just continuing. Do you ever get angry?
Yeah, I do. I get angry. You know, I mean, I do always keep a very calm face.
True.
You know, I think it's one of my superpowers, and that's not me just saying it. This was actually something that my colleagues at Yeezy said about me. I remember the most, and I take it as a huge compliment, because I mean, you know, listen, working for Kanye West isn't easy. Although I had an incredible experience there, and he was always extremely gracious and nice to me. You know, it still wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And you know, that calmness really kind of came out at that time, and you need it when you're working in an environment like that, or even just when you're creating products in general. It's moving fast. Things are changing. Things never go exactly the way you want it to go 99% of the time. So you have to pivot, and you got to make changes, and you need to, and having a calm, positive, but also confident attitude is very important. So even at Yeezy, you know, for me, it could be, you know, the walls could be burning down in the room, and I was always going to be very, very calm. And to me, that's a form of leadership, right? As well. Not every, I think leaders have different can look in different ways, right? I think you
Yeah.
have your rah-rah, you can do it
Yeah.
leaders. You have your leaders who lead by example as well, and that's kind of where I've always kind of put myself in that bucket. You know, as someone who you know, although everything could seem like it's falling apart and it's going really bad, but just being able to just take it all in, be calm, and try and make like sound decisions as you're just sort of, you know, gathering all the data and all the facts, and do it, and it served me well.
Yeah.
You know, in my time at Yeezy with other stars and celebrities. So yeah, I mean, do I get angry? Of course, yeah, I do from time to time. I usually internalize it for the most part. You won't like, very rarely you'll see me visibly angry. It does happen from every now and then, and when it does, it usually shocks the hell out of like my team or people that I work with. They're like, "Oh my God, Omar's pissed off." Like, I've never seen him like this before. So it does happen from time to time, but not that often.
Lovely. Okay. And you know, there's a part of your life which, when you were working for someone, would stop at a particular task when you're done with your work, and then the, you know, the resale, the sale, the resale, the distribution, everyone would take care of their responsibilities to drive that.
Yep.
But now you're in a very different role of you running your own brand. Everything becomes a part of your story, right?
Yeah.
So how did you pivot? How did you pivot from that space to coming in saying everything is my problem now?
Yeah, you know, my co-founder Abhishek, I mean Sam, yeah, he, you know, I give him a lot of that credit, right? Like I was, you know, we've been friends for a few years prior to starting FCTRY Lab, and you know, he comes from the venture capital investment space, which I knew nothing about, and you know, he really kind of showed me sort of this path forward in terms of, you know, how one goes about to raise capital to get a business off the ground. I didn't realize how powerful venture was until we got into it, and how powerful of a tool that can be to build, you know, a company with real enterprise value if you have something that's worth building. That's the key. You got to have something that's worth building. You got to have something that people are excited about, that investors are excited to get behind and put their money into. And he really showed me that, and it really kind of opened me up, you know, beyond just being a creative. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, even before, many years before we became friends, you know, and I had my own brand that I launched off the ground and did things, you know, I still had to do a lot of those things that one has to do to sort of keep the business running on your own anyway, but there was definitely a different level to it when Abhi and I came together and started FCTRY Lab. One, the fact that we were both around the same age and we had a tremendous amount of experience coming from the worlds that we were coming from, and then being able to combine those two things to create a very compelling and interesting business model that got all of our investors extremely excited about what we were trying to build. So that, yeah, he was instrumental in that part. So I give him a lot of that credit. And I actually enjoy it. I enjoy doing the stuff that's not related to design. I love learning about, you know, continuing to grow my wealth of knowledge around branding and marketing and, you know, logistics and digital marketing and how you target consumers and customers. It's all so fascinating to me, and it's all the little nuances and things that you learn. All the other stuff, the design, the development, working with shoe factories, building a shoe and bringing it to life, I can do all that in my sleep, you know, and I've been doing that in my sleep for a long time. But now it's interesting, and I really enjoy kind of also having a seat at the other table and being a part of this and listening and absorbing, but then contributing when I feel like I have something to contribute to. So it's been fun.
Fun. Sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move right into the design aspect and FCTRY Lab a little more now. So when you design a silhouette for FCTRY Lab, where does the inspiration really begin for you? Is it a movement? Is it a memory? Is it a frustration? Is it a technical limitation? Walk us through one of these silhouettes, maybe the OB ones. what is the idea that brews in your mind
Yeah.
when you have to come up with a silhouette?
Another great question. I think you mentioned a few things where the ideas can come from. I'll say all of the above. It could be from something that I see on a trip to Bombay. That out on the street, and an interesting piece of art, or a cast shadow from the sun, like the way it's sort of casting a shadow on the ground, to an idea I had a long time ago as a 8-year-old sketching shoes, which I do go in my old sketchbook because I still have all these drawings from when I was a kid.
Wow.
And I flip through it sometimes and also get ideas from there. But it really boils down to kind of what is really resonating with me and what's kind of in my heart and what I'm feeling like creating. It's not something that just like that I can just do on demand, because I still draw a lot. Like I carry my sketchbook everywhere. I have my sketchbook with me right now.
Oh, wow.
And I'm on the plane sketching, or something comes to me. I could be watching a podcast. I could be watching a show or something like that. Sometimes I'm drawing something completely original. Sometimes I'm reinterpreting something that's pre-existing from the past, like the duck boot, which we created last year, and I really wanted to do something that took that shoe to another level.
Yeah.
Duck boot's been around forever. Every brand on the planet is like made their own version of duck boot, but they all kind of generally look the same.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to do something a little bit different with it. So yeah, the inspiration comes from everywhere. And the inspiration behind this shoe, the OB1, funny enough, so I actually designed this shoe probably 12 years ago.
Wow.
But it was a little bit different. The sole was a little different, a lot thinner, more in line with what was trending at that time when you think of like, Common Projects and those like thinner, sort of more European like sneaker soles at the time that a lot of people were using. So it looked a little bit more like that. Definitely not as chunky as it is now, but I love that shoe so much. And I launched that shoe actually at Level Shoes in Dubai, and it did really well. And this was before I started working for Yeezy.
Wow.
And they sold out 2 seasons in a row of that shoe. And I was really sad when I had to put it on ice, because I got a job working for Kanye West, so I needed to focus on that. And I wanted to make sure all my energy was focused on that, because I knew that was a huge opportunity. But I always said in the back of my mind, I'm going to come back to this shoe and redo it. And then once FCTRY Lab started, and as FCTRY Lab started to kind of establish itself as this as sort of this incubator, or this like brand that interprets these visions in a very unique way from a very different point of view, I was thinking to myself, it's time to bring back my signature sneaker, the OB1, but reinterpret it through a 2025 lens as opposed to the original, 2015, 2016 lens that I had. And sort of the chunky sole, but I didn't want to go too chunky, too crazy like some of those Balenciaga sneakers, which are just, some of them are just wild, like totally out there. Like I get it, but I was like, I wanted to make something that I always, as crazy as some of the shoes are that I'm creating and that we're creating with FCTRY Lab, my goal is still to make them wearable.
Yeah.
Like, how can you still create something that people would want, a person would at least want to wear every day, or wear, as frequently as possible, as opposed to something that may just be like, an art piece, like the big red boot or something like that. For example, a lot of people bought that shoe, which did incredible, and those guys at Mischief did an incredible job with that, and it was everywhere, as we all remember. But a lot of people who bought it once, took a picture with them wearing it, posted on Instagram, and then that was it, right? But for me, it's always about how can I create something that's unique, that's different, but still wearable, that you can wear all the time. And that was my point of view, and where I wanted to start from when I started reimagining the OB1 and what that would be like today.
Right, and absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
The lows and the highs. Are you a lows fan or a highs fan?
I'm both, man. I'm both. It's hard to be biased. I literally have both with me right now on this trip. I wore the lows on the plane flying here from LA yesterday, and then I have the highs on right now. So I'm a fan of both. I really do. Like I rotate between them all. I have some new colorways I'm working on right now. I'm super excited
Wow.
to get some new materialization that we're doing as well. So I can't wait to see those. But yeah, I can't pick one or the other. They're both my favorites.
Wow. And are there going to be OB2s coming in anytime soon?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't even thought about that until you literally just said it. I don't know. I think the silhouette, I think there's something to say about like a classic silhouette where you don't want to change it. You don't want to, get rid of it and reach. In my world, if it's possible and if the people keep asking for it, I just want to keep this silhouette just going as much as possible. I want to make it timeless if I can, where you can where this thing can still be selling 3, 5, 10 years from now. Which I don't take for granted at all. People buy these shoes. It still blows me away that somebody would want to buy something that I came up with in my head. That's like wild to me that can happen. I mean, that you have these shoes. Right? It's crazy. Like I don't take that for granted at all. It just blows me away that somebody would do that. So, I'm appreciative to everyone out there who's been supporting us and the brand and me and my story and I'm just glad that I can, be a part of creating things that people are interested in. Yeah.
So for a lot of people who don't know about the story reference that Omar just said, I saw Omar's post on Instagram one day, and it was going to be the launch of OB1s. I reached out to him on Instagram DM saying, I want to own one of these. Where can I buy them from? And within 15 minutes, I got a call and everything was done. Everything was done. So that was great. It's amazing to own this piece. I don't know how many people in India own this, but I'm happy to be one of them.
You have to be one of the only ones, I think, right now. Definitely the first.
Definitely the first.
Definitely the first. Definitely the first.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I appreciate you for that, too.
Thank you. It's simply gorgeous because I do collect a lot of artist sneakers and collections, but a lot of them have a complaint in India especially that most of the sneakers look the same. They either look like one of the international brands or the Indian brands don't innovate enough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's changing with a lot of homegrown brands coming into the picture, focusing on design. So when I buy these sneakers, I want my sneakers to look different from the other ones that I own.
Yeah.
And this silhouette caught my eyes, the chunkiness of it, of course, as much as you say that this was thinner 12 years ago because the trend was then, this caught my eyes instantly and I wanted to own them.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. I want to talk about this for a second, if you don't mind. Is that brands, and it's the same problem all over the world, right? And even with new brands too, same thing. A lot of the shoes look the same.
Correct.
And that reason is because you see the things at the sort of the if you have a pyramid and you have Nike, and some people may say Nike's at the top of the pyramid still, or maybe slightly below, but I'm still going to have Nike up there because they're still one of the biggest in terms of revenue and all that stuff. They might be suffering in other areas, but they're still up there.
Yeah.
And then you have, your Hoka and your On Runnings and your Pumas and your Adidas and, and so on and so forth. Those are the leaders in that space. So, especially Nike, right? Like a lot of people will look at them, okay, what are they innovating? What new technology are they doing next? And then there's a trickle-down effect, and everybody wants to copy or do something similar to that because that's the trend, that new trend that Nike set forward, and everyone starts following that. And then now that becomes, right, like now everything starts looking the same. A lot of maybe the designers, whether it's their choice or not, are being sort of pushed in a direction to create things that look very similar to what's selling and doing well on the market because the leaders of those organizations and companies believe that that's how they're going to make revenue. Versus investing into actually innovating and creating things that are totally different. And everyone a lot of those brands may see that as a risk compared to others. I don't see those as risks. I see that as opportunity to do things that are unique and different. And you have to be fearless about it. And yes, there's obviously a cost and a literal cost that comes with it because it costs money to be able to build the molds and to create it. I mean, like I said, getting into the shoe business is hard.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why it's so hard is because it's expensive. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, getting into it and not have anything in the end. But this goes back to what I said earlier, where you need to have something worth building, right? And I think that also boils back down to the passion and the love. And the one thing I tell people all the time, whether you're a designer of clothing or shoes or accessories, you have to enjoy the thing that you're doing. If you're getting into this because you're just doing it because you think you're going to make money, you're going to fail before you start, right? So it needs to be the love that's driving you to do it, because that's what's going to get you through all the bad days, all the rough days, because I guarantee you, you're going to have more of those than you are going to have good days.
Right.
1,000%. It's gonna happen. But yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent from the point about sort of all shoes looking the same to why that is and where that creativity ultimately needs to come from. But basically, bottom line, what I'm saying is that you need to bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You need to bet on yourself as a creative, as an artist, and what you believe in and what you want to do. And hopefully you're able to create something that's going to stand out amongst the others, so that when there are things out in the world that just look like copycats of other things that exist,
True.
you're going to see an Obi-Wan that stands out on its own and that has separated itself from the pack.
Absolutely agreed.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you love, what you believe, one thing I absolutely love is the names that you come up with for for your collection.
Yeah.
Feels very intentional, not marketing led again.
Yeah.
I want to know, how do you name your silhouettes? What comes in your mind? What's the process like?
Another great question, man. I love these questions. This is a fun one to answer. Gosh, the names of shoes. I would say for the most part, like I come up with them on the spot. As I'm designing the shoe. That's one way. Another way is I could just do a sketch and then I just call it what I think it looks like.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it's like. Oh, that looks like something that should be called the stomper. It looks like a shoe that you're just gonna stomp on and do that, which is one of my all-time favorite names that I've coming up with a shoe. And then actually the cool thing about that shoe is we got it on, for any WWE fans out there, we got it on Seth Rollins last year.
Okay.
And Seth wore it he wore it on the Raw right before WrestleMania. And stomped Roman Reigns in the head with the boot on. It's amazing. I have the whole video. I was watching it on TV. It was incredible.
Speak about
when it happened. And then it just worked out so well that was his finishing move, was the curb stomp, which was awesome. So it was really cool, like working with him and his stylist on that project, and Troy, shout out to Troy. On that project, and shout out to Seth as well on that. But that was one of my all-time favorite names, is the Stomper. It just, when you look at it, it's there. But to go back to your question, it's just, I just try to name the shoes what they look like. That's it. Like, it's as simple as that, and it's a feeling, and then I just sort of stick with it, and then the name sticks and go. But you're 100% right on the money. It's not marketing driven. It's very intentional from authentically intentional, from just a purely creative standpoint. And I didn't really think much about it being a big deal until like people kind of mention it. And I'm like, I never really thought about that. And then actually when you do look at names of other shoes, they are actually like, intentional in a very different way, right? There's a system. There's sort of a naming convention that they start. I guess you could say too, Yeezy was sort of a bit of an outlier in that, with a lot of the names that, Kanye came up with a lot of the names himself, as well, or at least like the color names. There was always like the number of the shoe, and then there was the color name, and those are always very interesting. So I guess, from that time, and then plus like, my own creativity on top of that. Yeah, just wanting to be unique with the name, and just sort of boiling it down to being as simple as, yeah, I just call the shoe what I think it looks like.
No,
And that's
even
it.
the colors that you mentioned, right? Mint is a very unique color. I
Yeah.
love the cyber yellow. And how do you come up with those colorways? Like, how do you choose which?
That's
ones?
not always all me. That's a shout out to the team. Sometimes, the colors come up in a few different ways. One, I definitely have my thoughts and opinions on colors that may be inspired by something that I've done in the past, something that I saw out in
Yeah.
the real world, or out in the wild. The second thing could be a colleague who had an idea who I just thought was really good. I believe the mint idea with the mint color was from my good buddy Les. I'm pretty sure it was him who came up with the mint, and he was like, "Man, you should do a mint colorway." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Okay, let me try." I was like, "Oh, that looks good," and it worked.
It does.
And then yeah, so colors can come from any and everywhere. I don't take all the credit on that. Also, the other place too that come from is what I like to call happy accidents. When I'm working in the lab or working with my factories, generally when you're making a first sample, a prototype,
Right.
they always, you always want to use like scrap materials or things that are just kind of left over, just as you're confirming like the pattern and the fit and you don't want to do that with like the final materials just yet, because it's going to change a few more times. So it's easier to do it with scrap materials. And sometimes through that process, you end up discovering something that works. So the factory might create something. And actually, I remember a great example is our Night Runner, which is one of our flagship shoes, another very unique name,
Yeah.
which actually was inspired by my friend David Hasselhoff, former, he's still an actor, but he had the TV show Knight Rider, and I loved that show, and we randomly became friends, and the timing was just perfect. But anyway, in creating that shoe, one of the first colors we launched of that shoe was like this bright green, this lime green colorway. And it was the only color that the factory had laying around at the time, and they made it. And I remember showing it to a few people, and I was like, "Hey, don't mind the color. This is just like a prototype. Focus on the lines and the shape and the way the shoe looks."
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, "Yo, this color is fire. Like, you need to make it." I'm like, "Really?" After the 10th person said that, I was like, "All right, we're making this color. That's what we're doing." So that's what happened. So I don't want people to think that there's some perfectly calculated coloring system that I have out there. A lot of this shit is by complete accident that happens, and it sometimes it just works, and you can't deny it. You just have to go with it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Happy accidents. Sweet.
Yep.
Thank you for the information. I'm now quickly going to change the mood a little more.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to make it a little more swifter.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in some quick fires at you.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do
Ready
it.
for this?
I'm as ready as I can be.
Okay. So when assembling your core team, which role is almost impossible to hire in a footwear industry?
What role is almost impossible to hire in the footwear industry? I would say, and I'm only speaking from my point of view, and I'm speaking from my point of view as an entrepreneur,
Right.
who owns a small business that you're trying to turn into a scalable large business. The hardest position to hire for is someone who really has the overall brand vision, but also understands the marketing piece to communicating that vision out there as a new brand, a new business. And where I'm going with that is, there are tons of marketing people that work for big corporations, and
Right.
that's great. But what I've learned through my experience is you can't just take someone from big company and put them in a startup environment.
Yeah.
At one point I thought you could do that, and you can't. And the reason why is you realize that with the big companies, right, there's so many things that are kind of already predetermined and preset that you're working in, and then you're just kind of going in. And, I know I'm generalizing and I'm making it sound easy, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm, someone who's a marketing person for a big company making it sound like their job is easy, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a very clear difference between doing it as a startup and doing it as an already established company where you have a whole foundation.
True.
When you're doing it as a startup, you are building the foundation from scratch, and that requires a very specific set of skill sets, but it also requires a very specific kind of attitude and work ethic as well, right? And that's a very tough thing to find.
Right.
I think we have that with our team. Shout out to Tim Nickloff, who's on our squad and who's kind of stepped in to be that person for us. But I would say that is single-handedly the hardest position to hire for.
Right.
Again, from my point of view as an entrepreneur who owns a startup.
Right. Omar, if you ever need one, have you met Dakshin, the marketer? Moving on, what do you think is actually broken in the footwear industry right now? Is it innovation fatigue, overproduction, hype addiction, or something deeper?
I would say not innovation fatigue, but I would say the lack of innovation. Right. I think there's this. I think there's always sort of been a fear of like doing things that are completely new.
Right.
A great example is at Yeezy, right? Like Kanye wanted to push the boundaries and do things that were very different, and we saw the results. Shoes like the foam runner and the 450 and the knit runner and the knit runner boot and these silhouettes that did really well in the way people responded to it. But I think notoriously brands are very nervous about taking those kinds of risks. And I get it because there's huge financial investments into, the CapEx expenses into making these things and bringing them to life. It makes brands want to kind of stick to the things that they know are safer bets that are gonna work. So I think there's a huge lack of innovation still, but I feel like you do see that changing a bit, with, even within Hoka and On, and, Nike's always going to be Nike, but then like new brands that are emerging, such as mine and, others that are out there who are really pushing that and change and wanting to do something about that. But I think for a long time and still today to some degree, there is a lack of innovation in footwear and really pushing the limits beyond what it's been in the past.
Okay. Now I'm going to give you a couple of options, but you got to tell me, is it solving a problem or is it just a PR gimmick?
Okay.
Carbon plates?
That's a real thing. That's really solving a problem. Yeah.
Sustainability badges?
That's a good one. I would say both.
Tech-heavy lifestyle sneakers?
Tech-heavy lifestyle sneakers. That's definitely like that's not solving any problems.
Finally, celebrity collabs.
Celebrity collabs. Oh yeah, that's not solving anything either. No.
Okay. Moving on, the most overrated part of a sneaker design is?
The most overrated part of a sneaker design. Oh man, that's a great question. That the celebrity designed the shoe. That's probably a good one.
Yeah, it is a very good one.
The only celebrity that I actually ever seen actually designing shoes is Kanye. And then we still had a design team as well, but like in terms of like an actual creative direction, like he's the only one that I've ever worked with who actually was like really involved in the day-to-day. Others is just more like, yeah, this is cool, put my name on it, and that might be it. Maybe they might say a color or something, but they're busy doing other stuff. So yeah, I would say that's probably an overrated part.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because a lot of people assume that they're a part of the creative process, but
No, I might show up for a couple meetings and then that's it, and then it goes. But yeah, no, Kanye was the only one who I saw who was like in it every day, like every day. That dude was there, and when he could be, but you knew he cared about it, and it showed in the work. And it showed in his fan base, and it showed in the sales, right? Like he cared about what he was doing.
Right. Speaking of celebrities, one global personality you want to represent your brand for, and why?
one celebrity or one person that I would want to
represent your brand.
If I had my wish list right now, like someone who's at the top of my list. Oh man, that's a great question. A celebrity or athlete that I would want to, definitely probably someone in the international space, you know, not so much someone who's just like US focused. You know, maybe, you know, how about this? I won't, you know, I don't have a specific name, but I could throw out some categories.
Yeah.
Definitely someone like in the, like, you know, one of these like K-pop stars would be really interesting.
I was going to get to BTS,
Yeah,
but
those fan bases are nuts.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
So it would be really cool to like put us together to see what we could do with a rabid fan base like that. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. And we've been spotting you a lot in India. You were spotted with Hardik Pandya a few months ago.
Oh yeah.
And you're meeting a lot of people in this trip as well. What are you up to?
Oh man, what am I up to, man? I'm up to whatever people want me to be up to. Yeah, no, Hardik's a buddy, and I was he invited me to my first ever cricket match in Dubai earlier this year, last year,
right,
for the Asia Cup. So that was really cool to go to my first cricket match. So, you know, we've been talking about some things, so we'll see if we're able to cook some stuff up in the future, which is cool. I've met some other Indian Bollywood stars. I don't know if I could say their names on camera or not, so I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to get nobody in trouble. But some pretty big ones,
yeah,
that I found out later. I had no idea who these people were until like after the fact. I was like, oh wow, okay, these are like huge people. And then yeah, got some good stuff cooking up here in this week as well. I'm sorry I can't give you much more than that. I don't want to get in trouble or
no problem,
or give anything any bad luck. But I will say that India is a very important region to me for many reasons. I lived here for a few years. I have a lot of dear friends and connections and ties here. You know, my co-founder is from here. Half my team that works at FCTRY Lab is here in India, and I love coming here. So, and I love the people. I always love how everyone always treats me and is so kind and so sweet and hospitable to me when I'm here. So, it's important for me to do things here to give back, not just, you know, selling shoes, but to also be able to, you know, just share my knowledge. And I know the creative community is growing here, and there are more designers. I've had the chance to check out some of the shops here, like CDC and some of these other guys, and I'm impressed by what I've seen and what I've experienced so far. It's really dope to see how everyone is sort of like building a name for themselves. And, you know, if I can lend any support or, you know, give, you know, some additional confidence, which I don't think, you know, they need from me, anyone needs from me, but I'm here to just share, you know, the things that I've experienced and I've learned so that, you know, they can be better as well. Yeah.
Right. So wouldn't be surprising if we saw you in the OB1s featuring in a Bollywood song anytime soon.
Oh, that'd be amazing. If somebody out there wants to do that, call me, please. I'm here for it all day. That would be great. You know, we could do some custom color OB1s too, as well. I'm you know, that'd be amazing to do that. So yeah, anything is possible. Anything's possible.
Lovely. And before we conclude, you have launched your book, New Silhouettes. What's lined up for the next in 2026?
Yeah, 2026, we have a big year ahead of us. There's a few things lined up. As far as FCTRY Lab goes, I mean, we have a pretty full slate of new products coming out this year. Starting in, I think next month, we're launching the Stomper Low, which that's a shoe I'm super excited about. There might be a few images sort of floating around already from like the past when, like, I think I showed them at like Paris Fashion Week a couple years ago, but we're finally like getting those out into the world. So I'm super excited about that.
Right.
We have some new OB1 colors coming out, but then we have some new some new aggressive silhouettes that are coming out. We have a shoe coming out that I think is gonna be bigger than the duck boot in terms of grabbing people's attention and getting them excited about something, and that's coming out at the end of this year. So I'm super excited about that shoe. I think it's gonna really turn a lot of heads and get people talking quite a lot. Then, in addition to that, we're launching a sub-brand this year under FCTRY Lab. One of the things when we started the company that we also wanted to do, in addition to working with celebrities, was creating our own lines or categories or brands within the brand as well, and we're doing that this year as well, where we're launching a sub brand for a very specific market. Can't say much more than that, but we're really excited about it. But you should start seeing that around the second half of the year. But we're gearing that all up right now. And then overall, really it's about scaling and growing the business.
Yeah.
And, I talked about India being an important region to me. I'll also say the same thing for the Gulf, the GCC, like that. That's an important region for me. I do a lot of work in Dubai right now, and my goal is to expand into Saudi and Qatar and some of the other markets or other regions in that markets in that region, and to grow from there. Asia also extremely important. So scale is important, and that's just to those young entrepreneurs out there who are looking to build businesses, and especially ones who are creative. We can sometimes, and I say we, I mean as creatives, we can get in our own way sometimes, right? And I think the biggest challenge for any creative, and these are things that I've gotten better at over the years, is finding that right balance between the business and the creative, and understanding when you need to sort of take your foot off the gas so you can scale the business. So I'm at that stage right now where it's like, okay, how do we take FCTRY Lab from what it's established itself as, and this wonderful foundation and this incredible community of people who've been supporting us, and then put a little gasoline on that and kind of take that to the next level. So that's a huge focus for us too, as well as scaling, and that has a big part of that is going to be retail. So hopefully you'll see us in more retail stores in the very near future, a lot of our products in retail, and get our shoes more in front of people, because nothing, there's no better marketing than somebody wearing your shoe.
Yeah.
If somebody's wearing your shoe out in the world and it's unique, someone told me the other day, said, man, every time I wear your Obi-Wan, 10 people ask me what with this shoe, and I'm happy to tell them what it is. That's priceless.
Absolutely.
When somebody can do that, and I'm honored by that, and like I said, I never take that for granted.
Right. 2026 looks pretty exciting for you.
Thank
And
you.
That brings us to the end of today's conversation, Omar.
This is great.
This was great. Much appreciate you taking time to do this.
Thank
This
you.
is
Such
really
thoughtful questions too, man. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so
and you
much.
left me with some things that I need to think about too, as well.
lovely. That's for our next conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Then.
Part 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Omar Bailey, please don't forget to check out the FCTRY Lab and his brilliance. Until next time, stay laced.
Thank you. Stay laced.